Assalamu alaikum all of you. My name is Mohammed Salman Ghaffar and I'm the CEO and lead instructor at IBA and I've been teaching test prep math and verbal since 1995. Welcome to our analysis of the previous 6 years data of IBA admissions.
Assalamu alaikum to all of you. My name is Mohammed Irfan Ghaffar and I'm a director and lead trainer at Anis Hussain Educational Institutes, and I've been preparing students for test prep math and verbal since the year 2000.
Anis Hussain is the oldest, largest, and most successful test prep company in Pakistan. It was set up in 1989 by our founder chairman, Mr. Anis Hussain, who is also a former faculty member at Columbia Business School, New York, USA. We offer test prep services for business, medical, and engineering universities in Pakistan. We also offer test prep services for SAT, GMAT, GRE, LSAT, and IELTS and TOEFL, and other international admission tests. To learn more about our services, please visit our website, anishussain.com. Now let's learn about how you can apply to IBA. We can apply to IBA by either appearing in IBA's own admission test or appearing for the SAT exam. There are two attempts. The first, round 1, takes place in Feb or March, and the second round takes place in June, July. And then you also have the opportunity, if you do really well, to get a direct admission, or if you don't do so well, but you meet the second cutoff, you will be called for an interview screening. So let's do a small analysis of the previous 6 years admissions data at IBA to try and figure out how people generally get into IBA. We're going to be focusing on the total admissions data for these 4 programs: BBA, Accounting and Finance, Economics, and Social Sciences. At the moment, we are not focusing on the admissions test that takes place later, which is for Computer Science and Economics and Math, or PS Math. The admissions data for the previous 6 years shows that IBA has offered admissions to somewhere between 1,100 to 1,345 people over the last 6 years. These are the admissions for these 4 programs: BBA, Accounting, Finance, Economics, and Social Sciences. The numbers that you see are the total admissions offered in the previous 6 years. These include admissions for both round 1 and round 2. In 2023, in round 1, about 549 people got in. In round 2, almost 800 people got in. So as you can see, about 40% of the admissions offered in 2023 were offered in round 1, but 60% were offered in round 2. And that's probably because a lot more people apply in round 2 than they do in round 1. In fact, this is a trend that you will observe over the last 6 years, that a lot more people get in through round 2 than in round 1. The only anomaly was the year 2019, where a slightly lower number got in through round 2 than through round 1. So what that means for you is that you would rather apply as early as possible and take advantage of the fact that fewer people apply in round 1, and therefore you'll have a slightly higher chance of getting in. In fact, if you look at the success rates, this is the percentage of people applying to IBA who were successful. As you can see, somewhere between 15 to about 25% get in every time. Now you will notice the red line, which shows the round 1 success rate, and the yellow line that shows the round 2 success rate. Now in each of these years, except for 2018 and 2023, in all the remaining years, you will see that the red line, which is the round 1 admission percentage, that's higher than the round 2 admission percentage. But in the year 2023, which is the most recent year, we saw a higher success rate in round 2 compared to round 1. So overall, I feel that people should apply more in round 1 because the success rate there is usually higher.
Now let's have a look at the admission-wise breakup for IBA. In the year 2023, 471 students got admission in the BBA program, 418 students got admission in the Accounting and Finance program, 241 students got admission in the Social Sciences program, and 215 got admission in the Economics program. This trend has been consistent over the past 6 years. As you can see from the graphs on the screen, BBA admissions have been the highest number over these past 6 years, followed very closely by accounting and finance admissions. Generally, 200 to 250 admissions are given in every round in the BBA and the accounting finance programs. However, if you look at the admissions for social sciences and economics, you can see that about 100 admissions are given in each of these programs every round. This data is dependent upon two things. A, the number of seats offered by IBA in each program, and B, the number of students who are interested in applying to each program. And this data clearly shows that the number of students applying to IBA are most interested in the BBA program, followed very closely by the accounting and finance program.
The important thing to remember about the year 2020 is that it was the year of COVID. And because of the restrictions and the lockdowns, 2020 round 2 admission test did not take place. And therefore IBA offered admissions to a lot more people than it normally does, because the admissions that year, especially for that round 2, were based not on the admission test but on other criteria. And that's why we see a large spike in this particular number. This is an anomaly that you need to watch out for.
Let's now look at the number of students who got direct admission into IBA as compared to students who were asked to appear for interviews. Students who meet the higher cutoff are given a direct admission into IBA without the need of any kind of interviews, whereas students who meet the slightly lower cutoff are asked to appear for a screening interview. In the year 2023, 931 students were given a direct admission into IBA, which is a staggering 70%, whereas the remaining 414 students were given admissions through interviews, which is roughly 30%. This trend can be commonly seen over the past 6 years. If you look at the graphs on the screen, you can clearly see that the number of direct admissions into IBA every year is significantly higher, in fact almost double the number of admissions through interviews. Because IBA is giving a majority chunk of its seats through direct admissions, almost 70%, students are strongly advised to aim for the slightly higher cutoff and secure their seats into IBA.
In the year 1995, I applied to IBA for admission to the undergrad program, the BBA program. In those days, IBA had only the BBA program. Over 3,000 people applied, only 100 were selected. Thankfully, I was one of the lucky ones. And that's a pass percentage of only 3%. The question is, does IBA still have only a 3% pass percentage? Of course not. IBA has a lot more programs on offer and therefore takes in many more students than they used to. In the year 2023, over 5,200 people applied. 1,345 of those students were selected for admission to the various programs. That's a pass percentage of 25%. Let's see what the data looks like for the previous 6 years for IBA's pass percentages. So the data for the previous 6 years shows a few interesting things. Look at the red bars. They show the number of applicants, and the orange bars show the number of admissions offered. We'll observe the following things. In every year, the number of applicants in round 2 is substantially higher than in round 1. This is something that we told you earlier as well. That's why it's always better for you to apply for round 1 admissions rather than round 2. It increases your chances of getting in. There is less competition. Number 2, the number of admissions offered in round 2 is usually slightly higher than the number of admissions offered in round 1, probably because of the fact that more people apply in round 2 than in round 1. But the pass percentage in round 2 is usually lower than in round 1. There are very few anomalies here. 2023 was one of them, where the pass percentage in round 2 was substantially higher than the pass percentage in round 1. The overall success rate at the IBA over the last 6 years has varied somewhere between 15% to 25%, with the average coming at about 20% overall. All of this brings us to a very important question. Is it better to apply to IBA through IBA's own test, or should I take the SAT? Let's try to answer that question. The route to IBA, the IBA test versus SAT. Let's look at the data for 2023. In 2023, almost 1,000 people, 989 people, were offered admission through the IBA test to the IBA. Now, how does that compare with the numbers applying through the SAT? Well, through the SAT, 356 people were offered an admission. 74%, 26%, 3:1. Pretty high number for the IBA test. Again, impresses upon the point that if you're trying to apply to IBA and you want to increase your chance of getting into IBA, apply through the IBA test. Now that's for the year 2023, but what about the previous years? Well, for the last 6 years, the data has been quite similar. As you can see, except for 2020 round 1 and 2019 round 1, where more people got in through the SAT, every other year many more people have gotten through the IBA test than through the SAT. So if you were to ask me, where do I have a higher chance? Well, based on this data, I can say through the IBA test.
Now let's dig deeper into this data and have a look at direct admissions. Who gets in more? Applicants through the IBA test or applicants through the SAT? In the year 2023, 825 students were given direct admission into IBA through IBA's own admission test, whereas 106 students were given direct admission into IBA through the SAT, which means that the number of direct admissions into IBA through IBA's own admission test is 8 times the number of direct admissions into IBA through the SAT. This is another very good reason why all of you must sit for the IBA test, even though you may have what you think is a good SAT score.
And that's just for 2023. What about the historical data? Well, historically, again, we see a similar pattern. Direct admissions are dominated by the IBA test, except for 2019 round 1, where approximately an equal number of people got in directly through the IBA test and through the SAT. Every other year, we see a substantially larger number, the red line representing the direct admissions through the IBA test. We see a larger number of people getting in directly through the IBA without going through the interview than you see going through the SAT. So it's clear that for direct admissions, people applying through the IBA test have a much bigger advantage over those applying through the SAT. But for the interview, the story is not the same. Let's look at the 2023 data. In 2023, people who had applied through the IBA test and were called for an interview, only 37% of them cleared the interview. But people who had applied for the SAT, through the SAT, for the IBA, and were called for an interview, 54% of them cleared the interview. That's a much bigger number. So that means that people applying through the SAT, at least in terms of when they call for interviews, they have a distinct advantage. And we see a similar pattern throughout for the last 6 years. Compared to people applying to IBA through IBA's own test, people applying to IBA through the SAT have always had a much higher interview pass percentage, even as high as 81% in 2018 round 1. Every time, the percentage of people passing the interview who applied through the SAT has been higher than those coming through IBA's own test. Now we want to show this directly to you in terms of a graph that compares these two percentages as well. So the yellow line here represents the interview pass percentages for SAT applicants, and the red line represents the interview pass percentages for people who applied through the IBA test. And as you can see, every time the yellow line is higher than the red line, except for 2020 round 2, for obvious reasons as explained before. Now the other important thing to notice here is, let's see what happens when we only look at BBA and accounting and finance, because those two programs are the most popular programs at IBA. And you notice here that the red line becomes a lot closer to the yellow line than in the previous graph. Right, in the previous graph, as you saw, the difference was greater, but in this particular graph, when we just look at BBA and accounting and finance, we see the red line actually performing quite well compared to the yellow line and also compared to the overall percentages. And I believe that this happens because a lot of the people who apply through the SAT are offered admissions to the secondary programs at IBA which are BS Social Sciences and BS Economics. So therefore, the interview pass percentages for the main programs are not so bad if you're applying through the IBA test. The only time where we saw it fall substantially compared to the SAT was 2023 round 1. But it picked up phenomenally and actually outperformed the SAT students in 2023 round 2. This brings us to a summary of our key findings of the entire analysis. The first thing to remember is the number of admissions offered every year will vary somewhere between 1,200 and 1,300. Okay? Out of those people, the vast majority will be offered an admission in the BBA program, somewhere between 35 to 40%. For accounting and finance, the percentage admissions offered will be somewhere between 30 to 35%. For economics and social science, it varies from 15 to 20%. So that is in terms of how many admissions IB offers for the various programs. Moreover, about 15 to 25% of the people who apply to IBA get in. But please remember that a lot of these people who get in are also people who don't get into the program of their first choice. So this percentage that you see of 15 to 25%, this includes all admissions. The important thing to know is that IBA does not release data on how many of the people who applied to their first choice program were able to get in. So because of that, I suspect that in terms of first choice, a lot lower percentage get in. Another important thing to remember is that in round 2, approximately 60% of all the admissions for the year are given. But please remember that there are more people who apply in round 2 than in round 1. So therefore, if you want to increase your chances of getting into IBA, you should always apply in round 1. Also, in terms of the interview, more people get in through directly than through the interview. And also in terms of the comparison between SAT and IBA's test, more people get in through the IBA test than through the SAT. And in fact, in terms of direct admissions, the percentage for admissions through the IBA test are also much higher compared to admissions through the SAT. But the final point is that the only place where the SAT students have some advantage over those who apply through the IBA test is in the pass percentage of the interviews. A higher percentage of students applying through the SAT when called for an interview pass the interview than those who apply through the IBA test. That's it. That's the only place where the SAT students have some advantage over those who apply through the IBA test. That's it. That's a summary of all the key findings for the entire analysis. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Now, if you're wondering how you can prepare for the IBA test, you can join Anis Hussain courses for the IBA test or for the SAT. All of our courses are taught by highly experienced faculty, including me and my colleagues who have the highest amount of experience for test prep courses all over Pakistan. Our courses are offered online and also on campus at our campuses in Karachi. You also get access to our student portal where all our lectures are available for you to review in the future, and you also get access to recorded solutions of all our question bank questions for you to prepare comprehensively for these tests. If you're interested in joining us, you can call us at our numbers given here. If you need any more information, feel free to contact me on my email address or our general email. Thank you, have a great day, good luck, and Khuda Hafiz.